Such a well-known parable, this one, isn't it? I bet if I asked you, almost every one of you could tell it yourself. You know the story, we've grown up with it. And it's so understandable, isn't it? The way it's presented to us, it's one of the most understandable, I think, of the parables, the stories that Jesus told. So I thought this morning we would look at it perhaps in a slightly different way. So the two questions for this morning are, what may being good soil, can't speak now, what might it look like to be good soil? You know, because the seed didn't grow in all the other places, but it grew in good soil. So what might it look like for us to be good soil? Yeah? And the second question is, what might that feel like for us? How might that feel? So here we go with a few ideas about what good soil, what comes from people being good soil, might look like. And I'm going to go to one of my heroes first, Florence Nightingale. And we all know about Florence Nightingale and the beginning of nursing. But she felt it was very much God's call. And she didn't really know how to go about it. And she saw on the continent an order of deaconesses, which is a bit different from what you are, Lizzie, isn't it? Lizzie's a deacon and will be priested in all too short a time now. It'll be wonderful. But these were a perpetual order of deaconesses, which was the highest order women could be in the church. And she was very impressed by their activity and their care of people in the community. And she took that model of forming a group of women together who had the same ideas and could work in a similar way. And of course, we know she went out to the Crimea, and that was a lot about how the Crimean War, about how nursing developed. But you know, when she came home from the Crimea, very shortly, she was not well herself, and she spent, some say probably the second half of her life, working from her bed. And she never stopped the whole of her life. She went on working from her bed, writing, doing things to promote the development of nursing. Now, I think that's a lovely example of what being good soil might look like. It was a big thing that she managed to start that has affected all our lives, hasn't it? You know, and our country, and it's just amazing. Another way of being good soil, perhaps really without even knowing it, was a few weeks ago, Melvin and I were on a walk, and suddenly things went quite badly wrong for us. And immediately, 3 very young adults, the only people on the road, rushed to our help. And I can't tell you how beautiful it was what they did for us. They didn't go over much, they didn't push us, they enabled us, they helped us. It was beautiful what they did, and I will ever hold them in my heart, because they just acted out of love, instinctively. They came and did what was needed, and we scarcely had chance to say thank you. And you know, every time I go out, I have a look and see if they're on the road, but no. Or some of these are quite secular ones, deliberately. Or another, Billie Jean King. Who's watched Wimbledon? Who loves the tennis? Yeah. Oh, on Jabeur yesterday. Oh, that was heartbreaking, wasn't it? But you know, when Billie Jean King, who, you know, we all know that she was behind the development of the women's professional tennis circuit. But Billie Jean King started playing in the Park scheme in America. She came from a comfortably off but not well off family. And when she started playing tennis, she looked around her and she went, "Where's everyone else?" And she noticed that everybody playing tennis was white and sort of comfortably off, not necessarily rich. And as a young person, she went, "Where's everyone else?" And one of the things that Billie Jean has tried to do is to make room in tennis for everybody to play. Anybody who wants to should be able to play. And she's doing that now. She's nearly 80. And the thing she's wrestling with now is not how we get people from different countries and different backgrounds and ethnicities into tennis. She's struggling with how do we allow trans women to play tennis that's fair to them and to everybody. Big question. And here she is at 80, struggling with this big question, which is one of the basic tenets of Christianity, that everybody's welcome, everybody can join in, everybody's part of it. Or, closer to home, my last example for this morning, closer to home, someone who themselves is over 80, who drives around the village, picking up a carload of people who couldn't come to a social event themselves and would have missed out without this person driving around and literally filling a car up with people who needed to come. I mean, isn't that beautiful? That is just lovely. So there are some things of what good soil might look like, what being good soil might look like, how the love of God might be allowed to grow in people and come through into society. There's my favourite verse in all of Scripture, and if you, which you will, forget everything else that's been said, can I plead with you to remember this verse and tuck it in your hearts? Those who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. Those who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. It's an incredible verse. It has inspired me all of my Christian life. And as I've got older, I find it even more and more important in my understanding of the love of God. It's 1 John 4 verse 6 if you want to look it up or ask me. But those who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. And I love that idea that living in love actually, even perhaps unconsciously, is the love of God coming through, because there is only one source of love. We only have one God who loves us and gives us love in this world. So the love of God is vital, but so is the manner of it, how we go about it. I looked up words to see what different versions, different translations had used about this word living. Those who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. And the translators have obviously had a challenge trying to translate it in the best way possible. And the words we've got for it are many. We've got those who dwell in love, those who abide, those who remain, those who continue. That's a different thought, isn't it? The continuing in God's love, who keep on in God's love. Those who live in love, that perpetual way of living a loving life and taking that source from God, because we are in him when we love, and he is in us. So there you are. That's some of what being good soil may produce. And you can think of your own examples, and I know you can think of things that you do or you want to do that would come out of being good soil, people who let the love of God grow in our hearts and minds and activities. So what might it feel like being good soil, allowing God's love to grow in us? Well, I'm going to start with a negative. Perhaps not the most positive way to start, but I'm going to start with a negative. Debbie, our eldest daughter, who gave her gap years to church projects for the disadvantaged people, a mother of two, a stepmom of two others, who works long hours in providing healthcare, said to me, "Mum, I just can't go to church. I can't cope with being made to feel that I don't do enough." It broke my heart in a way, but I understood. You know, she was carrying everything she could. And to hear from the front of church, you should be doing more, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And she's already quite good at carrying enough things, and she would pick that up. And I understand that. And I know Rob works really hard to not put that feeling across. And why does he work hard when we've got needs in the church? But he works hard not to make you feel you've got to do more and more, because that's not God's plan. It's not God's plan that we feel that way, that we feel, oh, I should be doing more, I'm not doing enough, oh, I'm not good enough, that sort of thing. A lot of us may recognise that feeling, but it's not what it should be like when we're being good soil. In the gospel, in that story of the parable of the sower, there is no judgment at all about the amount of what we do. We can, yeah, here's Rob. We can, my honourable assistant, we can produce as much as our little box here, and that could be 30 times more than the grain of seed. I know it's a lot more, but you get my idea. Could produce that much from what God has given us. We could produce 60 times more. Yeah, isn't that amazing? Look at these lovely boxes. And you could produce 100 times more. 100 times more. But in the gospel, thank you so much. You are amazing. Thank you so much. In the gospel, there is no judgment given about how much you produce. But the fact is, the gospel is saying, produce. Let the seed go into your heart, and you will produce. And the challenge is not how much. I would say the challenge is how beautifully do you do what is yours to do. Look, I brought you what I think of as my beautiful boxes. We got them donkeys years ago in Poland, just after the Iron Curtain had come down and people were trying to sell things, and they're just beautiful. But the size of it doesn't matter. How much you do is not the question. It's how beautifully we do it. There's a lovely phrase that I heard on a podcast, and I won't go into it, but they were talking about how to develop things, and the phrase that came up was, and some of you might recognise it, sweat the small stuff. And what it means is worry about the detail. Take care of the detail about how you live your life and how you do things. And when you're helping or when you're serving, when you're doing something, do it as beautifully as you can. Take care of the detail. Take care that the love shows through. take care, because it's the beautiful thing and it's the work of God's love in our hearts. It may feel challenging at times. That's the question. What does it feel like to be good soil? It will be challenging at times. But we're promised in the sum total of it all that it will be joyous and wonderful. Wasn't it great to sing, "You shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace"? Some of you are going, "Oh, I don't know that one." But a lot of you do know it and remember it, and I could see the joy on your faces as we sang it. And I remember some really joyous times with that one in the past. But that's the promise, that when you're led by God, it will be joyous, and you'll be led in joy and peace. This Old Testament reading was about the people in exile being led home to their homeland, but they would do it not in horror, but in joy and peace. And being led by God is a joyous thing and a wonderful thing, and it has lots of laughter in it along the way as well. So one last picture to leave with you. Being good seed, I think, being a good ground in which the love of God can grow in us and through us, I think is a positive thing. For example, when government officials enforced painting over murals in a centre for children, lone children, immigrant children, where the staff had painted murals on the wall just so the children felt seen and recognised there was something they knew. And government officials came and said, "We can't allow them to feel happy and settled. That's not what we're here for. Paint over the murals," and made them paint over them. I think being good soil that allows the love of God would be like us going and repainting the murals over and over and over again, saying, no, we are going to share the love. We are going to care for these children. We are going to show them that they matters. So, fertile soil, those who are willing to live in love and share it. Not more jobs, necessarily, but doing what is ours to do as beautifully as we can. Doing what is ours to do as close to the way we perceive that Jesus would do it. Just full of love. And if we do, the joy and laughter can be wonderful. May God bless us all.